Greetings, and welcome to the All Facts Matter podcast, where we push back against corporate media propaganda with facts, evidence, and data. I'm Peter, the author of All Facts Matter. Let's begin. I want to start with a shout out to one of my followers, Stacy Cole, as her comment about understanding economics via her wallet was the inspiration for this exploration of food prices and food price inflation. And ultimately, everyone's understanding of economics is going to come down to their wallet, or more accurately, these days, the debit and credit cards in the wallet. But the part of that understanding which frequently goes unnoticed or unremarked is how money comes to be in the wallet, namely the wages that we earn and how we get them. And this is an essential understanding we need to have and we need to remember about inflation. Prices are not themselves the issue exactly. It's how much of our labor, how much of our work has to go into a particular price. And when we're looking at inflation, ultimately, that's what we're dealing with. And that's what I'm going to illustrate here. So what we need to understand about prices is they are always relative. It doesn't matter so much that a price is increasing. What matters is that a price is increasing relative to other prices. And the price that is most relevant, is most significant when we're talking about what consumer prices are increasing against, is going to be the price of labor. Now, the price of labor is, of course, wages. It's our hourly wage. It's our weekly paycheck. It's how much we bring home for the work that we do. What we call wages is also the price of our labor. Now, if consumer prices go up 8% and wages go up 8%, everything nets out. As we can see, if you have, like, for example, if your weekly paycheck is $1,000 and you have a food budget of $100, your food budget share of your weekly paycheck is 10%. And I'm just making up numbers here. If your inflation rate is 8% on both, well, then your food budget share of your weekly earnings is still 10%. The prices go up, but relative to how much you make, it all stays the same. But if you start off with the same position, prices go up 8% and your earnings stay the same, well, now your food budget share is taking out a larger portion of your paycheck. And this is what we see happening in different numbers, but this is what we see happening with normal inflation. Prices are going up, earnings, wages, price of labor is going up, but not by the same amount. Yeah. And if the inflation rate for wages and the inflation rate for other prices always stay the same, it wouldn't matter if you could have an inflation rate of 100%. Your prices could double. And as long as labor price, other prices stayed, you rose by the same amount, such that for example, in this instance, the food budget share, since we're talking about food prices, stayed the same, it really wouldn't matter. We wouldn't be talking about inflation as an issue if wages rose the same as consumer prices. They don't, of course, and thus we find ourselves in this discussing inflation. Now, when we look at prices, like when we're going to talk about food prices here, as you can see from this graph, food prices are going to be all over the place. Some some items are going to be cheaper than others. But to illustrate exactly how prices can get distorted, if you notice, in January of 2017, the average price of beef, of bread, of cheese, of milk, of lettuce, tomatoes, potatoes, your basic burger and fries, uh, was spread across this range of prices. By September of this year, that range had increased dramatically. This is what we're talking about distortion. This is what we're talking about, is that it goes from this range to that range. This is changing how things value relative to each other. And if we index these, we get a slightly clearer picture that while there was some increase, we note also that one of the food prices tend to be highly volatile. They go up and down quite a bit, which is one reason why economists will factor these out and talk about core inflation without food prices, without energy prices, because since they do tend to be so volatile, they can the volatility can obscure some of the actual trends that might actually be taking place. But even with the volatility, we see that after 2021, we begin to see for several food items a sustained upward increase, and this, of course, is the food price inflation that we've been seeing since roughly 2021. Now, that's a whole lot of lines to have on one graph, so let's just focus on the individual food items, a few of them, and let's see how the prices actually shape up, and how we can bring the price increases back to something easily relatable, hopefully easily relatable. And so let's start with beef. And of course, all of these graphs, they come from the Federal Reserve Economic Database System, FRED. These are the URLs for all of the graphs here. So you can always look all of this information up yourself to check it out. But this is the basic price per beef. This is given in dollars per pound. As we can see, there's a little bit of inflation. Price rose. Here, of course, is where we get the COVID pandemic panic recession. Price of beef spiked, fluctuated, surged, came down a little bit, and has been going up again. And this is the price in current dollars, in dollars per pound. Now, one way to assess inflation, of course, is to try to look at things in terms of their real cost. So you to take things out of the current current dollar pricing mode and use constant dollars, like 2017 dollars, to try to eliminate the effects of inflation. And while that can be done, we're going to do something slightly differently here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the average hourly earnings, which again is available through the FRED system, and I'm going to divide the average price per pound of beef by the average hourly wage, the average dollars per hour that a worker in this country makes. And what this gives us is what we can call the labor cost of beef. In other words, this is the number of hours, or the fraction of an hour actually, that one has to work to earn enough money to buy 1 pound of beef. These are, of course, average prices, so this is somewhat of a hypothetical, but uh, this is how much in any given month. This is about how much you would have to how much labor would be required to earn enough money to buy 1 pound of beef. Now, keep in mind, these are hours per pound of beef that we're talking about. What do we see? We see, of course, the same up and down, a fair amount of volatility, a little bit of an increase. Post COVID, we see tremendous inflation, prices recede a little bit, and then they're going back up. But these are hours, or a fraction of an hour, that one would have to work to earn enough money to buy a pound of beef. So you're having to work much, much more, about when we quite a bit more here in September of 2024 than in January of 2017. Yeah. And in fact, if we index this, we'll see that in at the start of 2021, you'd be working about 10% more to be able to earn enough to buy a pound of beef. And in September of 2024, you'd have to work 22% more than in January of 2017 to be able to buy just 1 pound of beef. Now think about that. You have the amount of work you have to do increased by 22% just to get the same pound of beef. The same product that you'd be getting in 2017, you now have to work 22% more to get the same good, the same quantity, the same quality. So it's not just simply a question of pricing. You have to work more to get the same. To get the same, not to get more. This is you're having to put out more work, 22% more work, to get the same amount of food. If we look at the price of bread, we see the same. We see again, prices went up post-COVID. This is, of course, the dollars for a pound of bread. Price of bread was actually diminishing a little bit pre-COVID, then started to rise again, and then really took off in late 2021, 2022. And so we'll do the same thing, and we divide the price of bread by the average hourly wage. And this is one of the reasons why this is a worthwhile exercise to do this, because we see that in fact, the actual trajectory for the labor cost, this labor cost of bread, quite a bit different. And the reason it's quite a bit different is because wages are the average wage is trending up and up and up over time, and so as the average hourly wage increases, well, that's going to impact what the actual labor cost of any particular good, labor cost of bread in this case, is. Yeah, and so let's go to the index to be able to see what the percentages are. And the percentages are kind of a little bit, put things in a little bit clearer perspective, since we are talking about quantities that don't normally get bandied about. I mean, it's easy to understand things like dollars and cents. But fractions of an hour can be are not numbers we normally see. So, uh, percentages of an hour, uh, you know, a more abstract level of magnitude, I believe is a little bit more communicative in this case. And so, what we see when we look at the index is that uh, in through early 2019, the labor cost of bread dropped quite a bit, actually more than 10%. And so this is one of the things about the Trump economy from before COVID is that when you see things like this, now this is just one price for one item, and so we don't want to say that this was the economy as a whole. But this is a bread is of course is a staple food item, and you're seeing this is a staple food item becoming less expensive in a very meaningful way. People, the amount of labor required to get a single pound of bread decreased by more than 10% in the pre-COVID years under Donald Trump. And even with the COVID pandemic panic, by the end of Trump's first term of office, price of bread was pretty much in terms of labor cost, the amount of hours, the amount of effort needed to earn enough to buy 1 pound of bread, was pretty much back where it started in 2017. You'd lost the benefit of this price deflation, this labor, this decreasing labor cost, but it was about the same as what it was in 2017. And now we come over here to to 2024, September 2024, and we're seeing that in fact the labor cost of bread is now 8.4% more than it was at the start of 2017. And again, this is hours worked. This is the amount of labor an average worker has to put out to earn enough money to buy an average pound of white bread. So this is and this is not something we don't have to adjust for inflation. We don't have to adjust for real versus nominal prices or do any of the other types of manipulations that we see with a number of economic statistics, because we're talking about hours worked and quantities purchased. These are not numbers that are going to fluctuate with, with inflation. An hour is always an hour is always an hour, and a pound of bread is always a pound of bread is always a pound of bread, or a pound of beef, or any good. And so this is this is what we're looking at. This is the effect of inflation, of food price inflation specifically, not just in terms of prices, but this is the impact to the worker, that that the average worker is having to work almost 10% more, put out 10% more effort to get the same quantity of food as in 2017. The same quantity of the same item has to work 8.4% more in the case of bread. Now, we might be talking about small fractions of an hour, so you're like, okay, well, that's not that much. But expand that over an entire work week. Expand that over an entire year of labor. Expand that over other goods. And these amounts start to pile up. That just to get the same amount of the same items, people are having to work significantly more in some cases. Now, when we're looking at labor costs, and this is the other, I've repeatedly harped on over the years, that inflation is primarily a distortion. And one of the reasons why I say that is that when we look at the price of milk, for example, we see that the price of milk was going down, has gone way up, has been fluctuating around since then. And this is the dollars per gallon of milk. This is the price of milk. So if we look at the labor cost, though, and again, how do we get the labor cost? We take the price of milk, divide it by the average hourly earnings, and here we're getting hours per gallon of milk. We see that we had a significant decline in the labor cost. Some inflation, but overall, the labor cost for milk is less than what it was in 2017. Even with inflation, to get 1 gallon of milk, the average worker is working less to be able to earn the money to purchase that 1 gallon of milk. And if we index it, we'll see that in fact there was a significant the drop in the cost of a gallon of milk, the labor cost of a gallon of milk in the end of 2018 was very close to flirting with a 20% drop. I mean, this in terms of the amount of work one needed to do to earn enough to get 1 gallon of milk, the amount of effort went way down. And even at its worst, it was only about maybe 3% higher in roughly mid 2022 than in January of 2017. So even though the price has gone up quite a bit in dollar terms, because wages have been increasing at the same time, the actual labor cost, the amount of effort that has to be expended to earn enough money to purchase a gallon of milk, has over time actually gone down. And as of September, has come down by about 10.6%. And so with milk overall, even though the price nominally has been going up, and so if you look at it in just strict consumer pricing terms, you're saying the cost of milk is going up and there's inflation there. Even with that, because of the pace at which average wages have gone up, the labor cost of milk, the amount of effort that has to be put in to get 1 gallon of milk, has actually gone down. So in fact, so even in a period where you look at the prices and nominally you see inflation, we look at this as, okay, we've got significant inflation here. The price of milk has gone up, almost over 60 cents a gallon since 2017. That's quite a lot of that's quite a lot of nominal price increase. And yet, even with that, because wages have gone up as well, in actuality, the amount of effort that has to be expended by the average worker to be able to purchase that 1 gallon of milk has gone down. Let's take another food item, potatoes. French fries, in other words. And yes, I selected these items because this was about how do you put together a basic cheeseburger. I like cheeseburgers. Again, we look at the price of a pound of potatoes, and we see a little bit of inflation. Not an outrageous amount, but definitely an increase of about 10 cents per pound from 2017 up to the pandemic panic recession. And then afterwards, price went up quite a bit, to now roughly about just over $1 per pound. But much like with milk, we see because wages are going up, the labor cost, the amount of labor necessary to secure enough earnings to purchase a sack of potatoes has was increased a little bit, jumped up a little bit after the pandemic panic, actually came down quite a bit, surged again, and has now come down. I mean, the prices are still up, but it's when we see when we look at it in an index fashion, we're seeing we're seeing that the cost of a sack of potatoes uh, was fairly volatile during the Trump years, is even more volatile uh, uh, afterwards. But at the end, it's still only about 7.2% more in September of 2024 than it is in January of 2017. Now, if if you were to take all these together, though, you know, what you're looking at uh, is a little bit here, a little bit there, and like any other expenditure, what you expend for one thing, you can't expend for another. This is true with dollars. It's true of effort. It's true of labor. If I'm working on one thing, I'm not working on something else. If I spend $1 for one item, I can't spend that same dollar to buy anything else. It's gone. And so these labor costs, even though we've moved away from dollars to phrasing things in terms of hours per product, per unit product, they're still going to be cumulative because the amount of effort I expend to buy the meat and the amount of effort I have to expend to earn the money to buy the bread and the amount of effort I have to expend to buy the milk and the cheese and the lettuce and the tomatoes and everything else are all going to, all then it would have to add up. And for just these items alone, when we look at it, you're having to work 36% more to get the same quantity of food as in 2017. Now expand that over the entire work week. Expand that over your entire food budget. Expand that over your entire budget because this sort of thing is not limited just simply to food. You can this is how this is effectively what pricing is for anything that you purchase. And if the ingredients of a simple cheeseburger require you to work 36% more than you did in 2017, and you expand that across your entire work week and across your entire work year, that means that in order to keep your food budget the same in terms of your overall paycheck, you'd have to be working 36% more hours, or roughly 54 hours out of a 40-hour work week. Alternatively, your wages would have to be 36% higher in 2024 than they were in 2017. And when you look at it that way, you begin to realize why was like for example, why did the longshoremen ask for such large percentage wage increases? This is why. Because they'd not had a meaningful pay increase going back a couple of contracts. And so this was the kind of correction that they were trying to make, that they wanted to make. And this is when we're looking at inflation, when people are talking about inflation, what we want to understand is that it's not simply a question of prices. It's not simply a question of dollars and cents. Uh, what we're looking at is how much work do I have to put out to be able to get the things that I need and the things that I want. How much work do I have to put out to buy food to put on the table? How much work do I have to put out to pay for my mortgage, pay for my house, pay for my apartment? How much do I have to put out to pay for? How much work do I have to do to pay for the clothes on my back, and on and on and on and on and on. You can look at it across all of these things. And when we're talking about inflation and the impact on people, it's not merely that the prices are going up. It's that you're having to work more to get the same. Or in many cases, you end up not, since you may not be working more, therefore you're not able to buy the same. As I've often said, what inflation really amounts to is that people are paying more but buying less. And this is one aspect of that. That this is it comes back to how much work do you have to do? How much economic output do you have to produce yourself to be able to have the same quantity of food, in this case, but also any other good, and have not more, not a comparable quality, the same exact products, the same exact quantities, the same exact quality. How much more do you have to, how much more effort do you have to put out to have just the same? Yeah, and when politicians talk about, oh, we have to fix prices, or oh, we have to deal with price gouging, and oh, we've got to try to get this under control and that under control, there's a fundamental disconnect there, because what they're not addressing is the fact that when we're not simply talking about the dollars and cents, but it's also the work that you have to do. How much effort do you have to put out? And how much does this take out of your, because you only have 40 hours in a week. You only have so many dollars in the paycheck. So if you're having to put out more of your hard-earned effort to go for food, well, that's less for rent, that's less for a mortgage, that's less for clothes, that's less for other things. And the more that you have to put out for the mortgage and for the apartment rent and everything else, well, then that leaves less for everything else. And it's not just simply a question, oh, well, the prices are too high. If we bring wages up significantly, that solves the problem just as well. We don't necessarily have to bring prices down, and in fact, it may be rather difficult to bring prices down. It may be easier overall, especially across the entirety of an economy, to focus on for Donald Trump when he gets elected, and for businesses and for individuals to focus on bringing wages up instead. Yeah. But in every scenario here, what we're seeing from inflation is not merely that we're looking at an increase in prices. It's always a distortion in prices. The relative values are shifting, and that's forcing us to change how we look at things. And this creates a problem. If the wages rise the same as consumer prices in every period, we wouldn't notice inflation. It wouldn't exist to us, because we'd be spending the same relative amounts. The labor costs of everything would stay the same. By the same token, if the price of one food item rose the same as any other, the price of chicken, for example, rose by the same amount as the price of beef, you wouldn't never feel an economic pressure to choose one meat over the other because the relative prices would stay the same. If the prices of meats stayed the same relative to the prices of, say, vegetables or bread or other food items, you wouldn't be feeling the pressure to moderate your diet to be, to have to cut back on the food bill because everything would be remaining about the same. Yeah. And in every situation, if all prices, including that of labor, in other words, wages, rose by the same amount and fell by the same amount, yeah, we would not spend nearly as much time worrying about or trying to comprehend inflation. But what we realize, of course, is that prices do not rise and fall by the same amount as other prices. Consumer prices do not rise and fall by the same amount as labor prices. And as we've seen, the price of beef certainly doesn't rise and fall by the same amount as the price of milk. And because prices do not rise and fall in unison this way, this is how we get inflation, which invariably ends up compelling us to devote more of scarce labor towards certain goods and certain services. And that leaves less of our scarce labor for other goods and other services. And even if there is an overall increase in total economic output across the entirety of the economy, when you have inflation going on like this, the composition of that output, of individual output for workers, but also for the entire economy, the overall composition of that output is changed, and it's hard to view a change as a net positive when it's effectively being forced because of the distortions of inflation. Yeah, and like I said, inflation means consumers pay more and buy less. But as I've just shown just here also, inflation also means that workers end up working more and consuming less. And I hope you found this presentation interesting. I hope you found this podcast enlightening. If you did enjoy this and you like it, please of course share this out to your friends, and please also consider making a one-time donation or perhaps signing up for a paid subscription to All Facts Matter. Your support is what keeps this work going, and I greatly appreciate everybody's support, including that of the free subscribers. I appreciate each and every one of you, and thank you for following along with all of my work. I hope you find this useful, and thank you for listening, and have a good day.